Hey folks, I'm Mike. Do you hate ads? I hate ads. You know what I like? Patreon.com/Inkdependence. It keeps this blog ad-free. Hey folks, welcome to Inkdependence.com. Today we have a brief video review and water drop test of this ink. This is the newest ink in the New Orleans line from Papier Plume. Comes in a box like this. Throw that over there. Has a nice wax stuff on the cap. It's dipped and then stamped. Real cool. The labels on these are always really interesting, I think. And this one gives you a picture of the bayou at nightfall. New Orleans known for its bayous. Louisiana known for the bayou. This is a very cool color. It is a bit off the beaten path. I didn't have anything that was really exactly like this. I got one that's kind of close, but not really, and this is maybe more available. You can see from the cap a little bit of blue has seeped in around the edges of that little cap liner, but otherwise it's a little bit hard to tell what this ink is going to be like. And it is what I was hoping it would be, actually, which is this. It's a very nice sort of, it's a gray for sure, but I think it's got a lot of green or blue or, some of those tones in it. And I've only got one ink that's kind of close to this, and it's not that close, but it's in the same vein. Well, maybe two that are sort of kind of close. But this is a very cool ink, I believe, and it looks markedly different depending on what pen and nib you have it in. So here under the Thoughts area, I've got it looking very gray here. This is from a Tasha Pinnacle, which looks like this. I haven't reviewed this pen yet, but I will get to it eventually. And this one has the music stub in it. These nibs are made for them by Sailor. This is a steel music stub. And it's quite wide, and it's a little bit on the dry side maybe, which is odd for a music nib, but nonetheless, it does tend to spread the ink out quite a bit. And so you end up with a much more gray looking color here. However, in the other pen I have it in, which is this one, this is a Pilot Vanishing point, of course. This has a sort of stubbed medium on it. It's a really nice nib work I had done on this one, and so it's not your standard medium, so don't expect this kind of performance from standard medium. It has been wetted and has been stubbed a bit, and this puts more ink in a smaller space, and so you get much darker tones. And actually, I like this one a lot better. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. See, I like this second writing sample quite a bit better. It's denser, it's more saturated, and I think it comes off pretty cool. I was actually kind of disappointed in this color. This wasn't what I was hoping for. I was hoping for something like this. And so I put in another pen just to see how it was, and turns out that was a really good thing I did, because I like this ink a lot better in the smaller nib. So that's not usually the case, but sometimes when you have an ink that's a little bit undersaturated, and I think Papier Plume tends to go a little bit light on the saturation for my tastes, you end up with an ink that looks a little bit better and a finer nib. So that's cool. Fine nib writers rejoice. All right. I had a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out what the heck I should compare this to when it comes to colors. And so what I ended up doing was saying, hey, here's a black. Look at how it's not that color. And I think that actually worked out okay. Yeah, it's not a black. It's definitely a gray and kind of a grayish blue. So after I do the water test here in a sec, we'll look at a bunch of coloring cards and see what we got going on here. As far as other notes to notice, the performance of this ink on the regular Staples 20-pound like copy paper stuff is, not perfect, unfortunately, but it is certainly not a problem, I wouldn't say. Let's take a look at that right quick. You do get a little bit of spread, I think, here. It's a little bit hard to tell for spread, but a little bit of spread, but you also get a little bit of bleed through on the back. This is mostly show through, but as I said, the Vanishing point puts more ink in a smaller space, and so sometimes you get more show through and that sort of thing. So this is more than ghosting, but not exactly bleed through. It's kind of an interesting situation, but I would say that not a big deal. And of course, on better papers, this is kind of your baseline terrible paper. There's no problem. This is Mnemosyne paper from Morriman, and it has no problem with this. So if you look at the back of this page, even here where I did the swatch, nothing. So that's pretty good performance, I think. And this stuff is a good step up from the regular 20-pound paper, but it's not coated like Rhodia or anything like that. So you get pretty good color representation. I'm going to be using this paper a little bit for reviews from now on, just to mix things up just a skosh for funsies. All right, let's take a look at the water drop. No, let's go ahead and look at it on some other papers right quick. So I actually almost filled up my last currently inked notebook from from Matt's Inky Fingers line, so he sent me a couple more. This is the smaller format notebook, and I like this. It's a nice little notebook. It gives you different lines for all kinds of things, and you can see it here, right here, and here. I have them side by side. I really like being able to represent them that way, and you can again see the big difference it makes what nib you have this ink in. So if you get this ink, or you get any ink, you're like, oh, I don't like this ink, and I don't like this ink at all. Maybe try in a different nib, because you never know. A lot of times it'll look different. That's why I try to use more than one nib when I can, because it's much darker over here and denser, and I think it looks pretty dope. On Tomoe River, oops, there we go. On Tomoe River, it's definitely a lot lighter because this paper doesn't soak up anything. Of course, there's no bleed through or anything, which you're never going to get that with Tomoe River, really. You get it every once in a while, but it's got to be something really crazy. No problems there. Again, it looks better, I think, from the Vanishing point than it does from the Tasha. And I think that's just because it has better ink flow. Tasha may be just a little bit wrong for this ink. So, yeah, I'd say put this in something with a fine nib, and it's going to look cool. It's supposed to look kind of like the swamp at night, and I think it looks nice. Nice, like, dusky color. I like a good dusky color. Some people want to always want strong primary colors. I like them when they're a little bit off and they're a little bit dusky. All right, so let's take a look at this, see how it does for a water test. Got my handy syringe right here. Oh man, come on, there we go. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to move. Y'all know how it is with syringes, right? Syringes, yeah. All right, so there's plenty of water there. This paper, as I said, is Moramon Nemosini, and it doesn't have a coating on it, but it does tend to resist water pretty well. I'm really impressed with this paper. It's underrated, this Japanese paper here. All right, so let's go ahead and blot it away. Most of it stayed beaded up on top, actually, which is nice. And they would go through, nah, not really. Didn't really even wrinkle the paper much. A little bit, not too bad. Really nothing here on the paper, or on the paper towel. That's pretty cool. Let's find another dry area to blot that away. And actually, this is much better than I was thinking it was going to do. I had no real idea how this was going to do in a water test. A lot of gray inks have a little bit of a problem with water tests, but this one, man, it actually held up really well. I'm impressed by that. There's a little bit of movement here on the lines. The dots still look distinct. I put it all over this water test stuff here. It even went up here when I was blotting it away. It's still totally readable. So, you know, if you soak it, yeah, it's going to come off. But hey, this is pretty good for your casual splash or, bit of water. So good job, Papier Plume, doing this water, or this sort of water-resistant gray. I dig that. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the chromatography. I can't show you the chromatography in motion here like I usually do because I got the new iPhone, and for whatever reason, Apple has not updated their Final Cut Pro to accept those files, and so I can't view them on there. So anyway, we'll look at it here, and it is a cool looking one. Or you can go over to Instagram and see it there. I'll post that video there. But look at that. That is neat. And I guess if I had looked down here before I started talking about how I don't know how it's going to behave, I would have said, oh yeah, it's probably going to stick around because that gray base layer really sticks around. The rest of this, though, you can see there's like a light blue in there. There's a bunch of space, which is interesting. Then you get your violets and some more gray. So yeah, this actually does really well with water, and I think it's kind of a cool little bit of chromatography. All right, let's look at this. Next, look at some comparison shots here. There's the Bayou Nightfall right there. This is from a coloring card that I got from Anna Reinert via Anderson Pens, or I want to say I bought it from them. Yeah, real cool. Love these coloring cards. Definitely go check those out. Here it is next to the Blackest Black, Aurora Black, and my favorite gray, which is this Mont Blanc 90-year permanent gray. This is my favorite gray, I think, of all time. And you can sometimes still get this 90-year permanent gray. It was a limited edition, but it seems like they found more or brought out more or something. And you can see this is somewhere, it's got a lot more greenish bluish in it than your just straight up gray. So that's pretty cool because, hey, Nightfall has a little bit of gray and green in it. And it's definitely not a black. So this is just sort of a comparison shot. Let's see, other grays to compare it to. Here are two versions of Oyster Gray. First, Mont Blanc Oyster Gray, which a lot of people are going to be familiar with. And then Papier Plume's Oyster Gray, which I actually prefer because it's a much darker gray. It's kind of a charcoal-y sort of gray, and one of the more saturated inks that Papier Plume has made, I think. They make a lot of sort of like light inks. This one is nice and saturated, very cool. But this, again, not that close to Nightfall, to Bayou Nightfall. And let's see, what else have we got here? One more set of grays just before we go to something a little bit closer. This is Pilot Irishizuku Fuyuseugan, which I am definitely saying incorrectly, and Mont Blanc's Albert Einstein Gray, which is pretty hard to find now, but a lot of people snagged bottles of this, which is kind of a darker version of that 90-year gray and not as waterproof. So there we go. All right, that's it for grays. Here's something that is actually kind of close to, and that is Lami's Petrol. If you were lucky enough to snag a bottle of that, it's pretty close. And an old standby, which is Noodler's Air Core. It's an Air Core blue-black, but it's not really all that blue-black. It's much more like green-black-ish, and it's kind of close, although a lot more saturated, way more heavily saturated than Bayou Nightfall, as is Petrol, but it's at least the same kind of color family. So if you couldn't get Lamy Petrol and you want something that's kind of like that green-gray, it's definitely a grayer tone, maybe go with Bayou Nightfall. That could be a good, not a substitute, because they're definitely different, but it's at least kind of close. And those are, I think, as close as I can get to Bayou Nightfall. This is, as far as I can tell, a very good exemplar of this like greenish grayish thing. And also, I'm not going to say unique necessarily, but I don't have anything like it, and I look through all my inks. So there you go. All right, so this has been Papier Plume's Bayou Nightfall. Definitely go check this out at papierplume.com, or go visit them if you're in New Orleans or the New Orleans environs. I hear that store is really cool. I've never gotten to go because frankly, that's far away. But definitely go there, say hi to Patrick and Renzo for me, and, thank him for sending stuff to Inkdependence. Tell him that I sent you. I will see y'all later. Peace out. Hello, folks. Welcome to Inkdependence.com. Today we have a brief water review. Ugh.